One thing that's always intrigued me in the health space is the realization that those people with an autonomic or autoimmune condition never tend to experience just one single symptom. It's always a multitude of symptoms. Whereas on the flip side, those without a chronic condition tend to get by their day-to-day life without even having to pay the slightest bit of interest to what's actually occurring within their body. Why was this? That was the big question that was on my mind for a number of years, and then it suddenly hit me that surely in one way or another the brain had to be a key variable involved in this situation, as the primary function of the brain is to oversee and mediate activity that happens all throughout the body. So if the brain struggles, then by default the rest of the body will also struggle. And that brings me on to something that was occurring within my own body, leading to so many widespread issues, and this was something called cerebral hypoperfusion, or lack of blood flow to the brain. Now, I see a lot of people on the internet talking about the importance of optimizing the function of your brain in order to recover long term from your chronic ailment. And many of the techniques that these people suggest involve using your own conscious awareness in order to make changes to your mindset and thinking patterns to in turn lead to long-term improvements within the rest of your body. Now, this line of thought is all well and good, and I'm not discrediting anything that any of these people have to say. But what if the main primary issue was that your brain just simply wasn't being sufficiently fueled with enough blood on a consistent basis? I specifically remember one of the practitioners making a comment that helped with my own recovery that really stuck with me. And what she said was trying to run a body that isn't getting enough fuel to its head is like trying to drive a car without putting any gas in it. One has to come before the other, because blood is the currency of life, and depriving the brain of it is depriving each and every process that the brain runs automatically and unconsciously within the body, which is a lot of things. So you could potentially end up with issues impacting your general energy levels, the quality of your sleep, your breathing, your heart rate, your circulation, your ability to digest foods, your ability to thermoregulate and handle different temperature environments, the levels of pain that you experience, the tone and resilience of your muscles, the clarity of your cognition and other mental attributes, and that's only a handful of things that your brain actually oversees. So if you are somebody who experiences a ton of seemingly unrelated widespread issues within different regions of your body, and you've tried so many things to attempt to recover, then maybe keep cerebral hypoperfusion in the back of your mind as a potential cause for the onset of these symptoms. But if you did want to learn much more about all of this in far more detail, I highly recommend checking out the Unbeatable Blueprint online course. Here I discuss how dysfunction within certain neural pathways can go on to cause issues with how the body self-regulates, and I provide the exact steps that I took to significantly improve my overall quality of life. Now, some of the main symptoms that I personally lived with for a number of years that massively restricted my day-to-day life included the likes of orthostatic intolerance, so the inability to stand upright with a racing heartbeat, severe shortness of breath, temperature dysregulation issues, major gut motility issues and gut spasming, severe anxiety and panic attacks, and major sleep issues with plenty of muscle ache and fatigue. What I later came to find out, which questioned everything that I previously believed to be true about my body and health in general, was that in one way or another, the emergence and severity of each of these symptoms was directly influenced by cerebral hypoperfusion. Because the brain is an aerobic beast and is incredibly oxygen sensitive, which means that in certain circumstances, when the brain is deprived of fuel, the body is going to deploy so many compensatory mechanisms in order to protect the brain from becoming hypoxic. And this is going to cause two very key things to happen simultaneously. The first one being is that it's going to metaphorically hijack any resources that are currently being used by other systems in the body to carry out their roles, and this is in order to fulfill what is a much more important task for survival. And two is it's going to hijack your conscious attention to get you to behave in a way that helps to restore blood flow back to your head. So this could be getting you to lie down on the floor or getting you to walk away from a social interaction, for example. And this was the phenomenon that was happening to me on a daily basis, and I had absolutely no idea why. That was until I had an autonomic tilt table test, which revealed some pretty unexpected things. So this is me just prior to a 70-degree tilt, where I was hooked up to multiple blood pressure cuffs and pulse oximeters. And what you can't really see in this image, so I'll show you in this next one, is me wearing something called a transcranial Doppler, which is a device that measures the amount of blood flow velocity actually travelling up to my head during the tilt. Now, what's very important to note is that within the first minute of the tilt being initiated, blood flow velocity in a fit and healthy person should remain above 90%, and then in subsequent minutes of a 10-minute tilt, that amount should remain above 80%. And if you compare that to what my results were, which I'll put up on the screen now, where the top number represents minute 1, the second number down represents minute 2, and the bottom number represents minute 4, you can clearly see that my levels were about 10 to 25% lower than what they ideally should have been. But what was probably the most fascinating thing about all of this was that as I was gradually able to start to increase this level over the period of multiple weeks to bring it back up to within a more normal range, every single symptom that I mentioned to you just a moment ago gradually started to improve alongside one another at a similar rate. I'm not going to talk about what it was that I did to increase these levels in this video, because I already spoke about that in a previous video that I'll link above. But the reason I wanted to put today's video together was to stress the utmost importance of ensuring that you have consistently adequate amounts of blood remaining in your head when it comes to chronic illness recovery. Because so many chronic symptoms that people regularly experience are not the problem, they are a reflection of the problem. And if you are able to have this radical paradigm shift, you'll realise that the best way of resolving chronic symptoms for the long term is to come at the problem indirectly by optimising the function of your brain and nervous system to get it working more in line with how it was originally designed to work.